Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is David Malan. I'm an HR professional working in Australia, and this is my June monthly favorites video, a video in which I talk about 4 things that I've enjoyed during the month of June. I had someone comment on my May monthly favorites video saying, where are your June favorites, given that we're in July? So I wanted to say thank you first of all for actually watching my video. I wasn't sure that people were actually watching them. And secondly, thank you for commenting as well. So once I finish this video, I'll make sure to include a response to your comment so you can watch this one. So today I'm going to be talking about a website, a book, a podcast, and a physical product. I've put timestamps in the description. If you want to jump ahead, you can do that. They are also on the screen as well at the moment. So the website I wanted to talk about is called typingclub.com. That is not a club where people get together and talk about their love of typing, though I'm sure my wife wouldn't be surprised if that's something that I was into. It's a website which teaches people how to touch type. Back when I was in school, I remember learning how to touch type on a program called Mavis Beacon. My friends and I used to finish our schoolwork and then our teacher would let us play Mavis Beacon and learn how to touch type, and it had this cool racing car game where the faster you typed, the faster your car went. Back in the day when I was learning how to touch type, the pinnacle of gaming consoles was the Sega Mega Drive, so playing Mavis Beacon on an Apple computer was really something that we looked forward to. These days, obviously, it wouldn't be that appealing, but Typing Club has games that are a lot better than what I used to learn on. These days, it doesn't seem as though schools place as much importance on touch typing as a skill, but I really think it's a great life skill to have, especially if you're a knowledge worker or someone who has to type or spend a lot of time in front of a computer. Just say, for example, you have 2 employees, one who types at 100 words a minute, the other one who types at 45 words a minute. Obviously, there is going to be some productivity benefit for the employee who is the faster typer. There's going to be less friction for them in terms of getting their ideas into a form of tangible output. Obviously, the ideas that they have are key, but being able to be productive is obviously important. So back to Typing Club, this is the website, this is my son's profile. As I said, he is 8. We've been using this for him for the last month or so. It uses gamification principles, there's stars and points and those types of things. Basically, the idea is you work through each of the levels, trying to get to 5 stars on each. So as you can see on the screen here, it has the words that you need to type as well as a visual showing you which finger you should use for the keyboard. So as you type, the fingers change, and so it trains you to look up instead of looking down at the keyboard. So as you type through, you see the keyboard moving. I'll get out of this because I don't want to muck up his statistics, which I'll show you as well. So in the statistics page, you can look through practice time, you can look through different attempts. I don't spend a lot of time in this section, but it does show you keyboard mastery and how fast you are and at different keys and what to practice. So as I said, my daughter Claire, she is 5. She started using Typing Club as well. She is using the Jungle Junior version, which is a similar concept, but obviously far less advanced. So I'm finding that this is really helpful for her as she's beginning to learn different letters and how to read. This is kind of reinforcing what she's learning at school. Similar premise, it shows you which finger you should use on the keyboard, and you can just work through it like that. So that is the website that I wanted to talk about, typingclub.com. It is a free resource. If you pay for it, there is a subscription model where there's less ads and more access to games. At this stage, I haven't done that, but I am looking at whether that's something I do in the future as they start to use it more often. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is a book called The Coaching Habit: Say Less, Ask More, and Change the Way You Lead Forever. It is a really practical and easy to read book which gives you things that you can immediately apply. As an HR professional, I spend a lot of my time coaching leaders and coaching employees and helping leaders to coach their employees. And something that comes up quite a bit is from leaders who say, hey Dave, I know I need to be a better coach. I know I need to spend more time asking questions, but I find it hard. It's not a default style for me. It's not something that I can naturally and easily do. And I think that this book is a great way to start to coach your employees as opposed to jumping in with solutions and advice. The book goes through 7 essential questions that you can use for coaching, and it really demonstrates the value that you can get from asking questions as opposed to giving advice. So I think it can sometimes feel a bit unnatural for people. We are conditioned in the modern workplace, in the modern organization, to just quickly come up with solutions all the time and give advice and solve problems. But this book shows the value in slowing down and making sure you're solving the right problems, making sure you're coming up with solutions for problems that actually need to be solved. Another section that stood out to me in the book was the brain's fundamental organizing principle is centered around the risk and reward response. So as you can see here, 5 times a second, the brain is scanning the environment to determine, is this safe? Is this dangerous? And the relevance in terms of coaching and leadership is that, as leaders, we need to make sure that we're creating situations that lead to safety. If we feel safe, we feel more engaged, and it leads to more sophisticated thinking. We bring our best thoughts and creativity to the workplace. If we don't feel safe, we pull back and we don't engage as much. And the book goes into a lot of detail about this and talks about a handy acronym, which is TERA. TERA stands for Tribe, Expectation, Rank, and Autonomy. And it's our job as leaders or as coaches to increase the TERA quotient in the employees that we're dealing with, the employees that we're leading or the employees that we're coaching. Tribe looks at whether the person is thinking, are you with me or are you against me? So the brain is scanning to see, is this person that I'm dealing with, are they making me feel safe? Do I feel like they're for me or against me? Are they going to help me? E is for expectation. The brain is figuring out or trying to figure out, do I know what's about to happen? The more sense I have an understanding of what's about to occur, the safer that I'll feel. R stands for rank, and it looks at not just the formal title, but how power is playing out in terms of the dynamic. Am I feeling more or less powerful in this situation? Obviously, if an individual is feeling less powerful, then they're feeling less safe and therefore less engaged. The final one, autonomy. Do I have any say in terms of what's about to happen? Do I have any ability to influence? If you're feeling like you have no ability to influence, you feel less safe in the situation and therefore less likely to engage. Our job as leaders or managers or coaches to increase that TERA quotient in order to make employees feel safe and want to engage. It goes into a lot more detail in the book about that section, but I thought that was a really helpful section and a good concept to think about. Final point that I wanted to make about the book, in terms of the 7 essential questions, there was one that really stood out to me, and that was the learning question. And that's a question in which you ask someone, maybe someone you're coaching or one of your direct reports in terms of a one-on-one. So you ask them, what was most useful for you? And I think that's a really powerful way to end a one-on-one or to make it safe for someone to provide feedback. So it goes into more detail in the book around the science behind that question. But when you're asking someone, what was most useful for you? You're creating an opportunity, you're creating space for them to learn, and you're creating that double loop learning so they can reflect and think about what was valuable, and then they're more likely to apply it. So that was the book, Coaching Habit, Say Less, Ask More, and Change the Way You Lead Forever. Highly recommend it, and I'll include a link in the description for where you can buy it. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is a podcast called Building a Second Brain, which is by Tiago Forte. It's a series of quick episodes, they're about 10 minutes each, in which Tiago Forte goes through 10 key takeaways from his course by the same name, Building a Second Brain. So I first came across Tiago Forte's website about 6 months ago, and his concept around building a second brain, which is basically an approach to personal knowledge management, an approach to how we deal with all the digital information that we're consuming in the world. And it centers around this methodology that he's come up with called PARA, which stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archives. I started using that about 6 months ago. I changed my folder structures in Google Drive, Finder, Explorer, Notion, Evernote, all of those different systems. And the idea is that you replicate PARA across all of your different systems so you have that uniform way of dealing with information. So in terms of PARA, the P stands for project, which is basically a series of tasks linked to a goal, and it has a defined end date. So from an HR perspective, this might be recruiting X number of employees by this certain time in order to meet the project deliverable. Areas, that is a sphere of responsibility to be maintained over a period of time. So as an HR professional, you would probably have a folder called recruitment. And that's a standard that you are responsible to maintain over time. Linking back to that project example, hiring those employees, once you've completed that work, you would transfer that folder into your recruitment folder. Resources, basically any themes or topics of ongoing interest. So things that you're interested in, but maybe not necessarily responsible for, or they aren't linked to active projects. So it might be marketing or it might be finance. In the resources folder, you would have subfolders in which you've saved different pieces of information. Obviously, archive is where you would transfer or save anything from the previous 3 categories that you're no longer committed to maintaining or no longer responsible for. So I found that switching to that methodology, thinking more in a project-based manner, has really made a big difference for me in my personal life and also professional life. And it's really been helpful in terms of managing all the information that I consume. There's so many things that we need to be across. If you don't have a system or a methodology in which to organize what you're consuming, you can quickly become overwhelmed. It's a really quick podcast series. It doesn't take a lot of time to listen to. I somehow managed to convince my wife to listen to it with me. She's not really into this stuff as much as I am, but we went for a quick drive to the country. We were able to listen to the whole series, and she said, wow, that was great. I really took something out of that. And when we got home, she reorganized her digital files to meet that para method. So I highly recommend you have a listen, and as I mentioned, I've included links in the description. The physical product that I wanted to talk about is this Soga commercial manual juicer. So it's a citrus juicer that I asked for my birthday, and my mum got it for me. So thanks, Mum. A little bit of a backstory on this one. Given quarantine and lockdowns, been spending a lot of time at home. Obviously restaurants and bars aren't open, and so we've been making the occasional cocktail. I got a recipe for a whiskey sour from a bartender, and she was very forthright in her opinion that you should never use bottled lemon juice. It should always be fresh lemon juice. And so I got that juicer for my birthday, and I've been using it to make the occasional cocktail. Another added benefit that we found with the kids, we've been using it to make juice and being able to show them, you know, if you want to make a glass of juice, you need to use 2 or 3 oranges. If you wanted to have a really big glass of juice, that might be 5 or 6 oranges. Would you really sit down and eat that many oranges in one go? And obviously they're like, well, no, I wouldn't, you know, lots of sugar, that type of thing. So it's been good to show them how much fruit is needed to make juice, and to kind of show them how much sugar is in juice and that type of thing. So that's been my monthly favorites for June. I hope that you've found it useful. Maybe you've learned something, or maybe you've seen something that you're interested in. As I've mentioned a few times, all the links are in the description, so please feel free to have a look. I've also included a link to my May monthly favorites if you wanted to watch that as well. And I've included a link to how I read books in Notion. If you wanted to have a look at that, you might be able to learn something from that as well. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and if you have any questions, please drop me a line in the comments.